I've got a lot of different variety in the DIY projects I like to do, and that shows up here on the videos I do on the channel. Most of them involve woodworking or things on the laser, but I also have a few things that involve 3D printing and some electronics. What I've been really interested in learning more about is leatherworking. Now, I don't know anything about leatherworking, and I was looking for a project that could get my feet just a little bit wet without me buying a bunch of new tools and learning a whole bunch of concepts. So what I decided to do was take on a project that involved leather with the laser. That way I can do the cutting with the laser, but learn some basic concepts along the way about leatherworking. This particular project is going to be very basic, and most would not even consider it a leatherworking project. It's going to get my feet wet into the materials, but not require me to buy a bunch of new tools. What I'm going to be doing is making leather bookmarks on the laser. So if you have zero interest in leatherworking, you still may like to adopt this new material for use on your laser. Let's first go through the items that I'm going to need for this project, which is a very small list. The first thing we're going to need is a piece of leather, and that's where my first bit of learning came in. Leather is measured by ounces per square foot instead of measuring thickness. In order to get a decent thickness for a bookmark, but not too thick, I went with 4 to 5 ounce leather, which equates to about 1/16 of an inch thick. You could definitely use some thinner leather if you find it, but I found this 4 to 5 ounce to work out great for bookmarks. This is veggie tan leather, and I'll put a link to it down in the description so you can pick up this exact kind if that's what you want to work with. Next up, which I'll also post links for, are some tassels for the bookmark. These are just a nice add-on decoration to dangle out the edge of the book and give some color to your bookmark. Next, we have some medium brown dye for the leather to give it some nice color. And finally, some leather sheen to condition the leather and give it some protection. These are all the items I'm going to need for this leather bookmark project on the laser. Like I said, this is a very leather adjacent project. It probably can't even really be called leatherworking, but it gives me a good introduction, and down the road I can pick up some tools and actually do some real leatherworking. Next, I'm going to put these items aside because I have a new accessory for my xTool P2 laser that's going to help me out a little bit on this project and save some headaches. Now by default, the xTool P2 comes with slats. These slats can be installed individually in the machine to hold your material up. One of the initial complaints was that these slats allowed items to fall through. So I've decided to upgrade mine to the honeycomb tray. This honeycomb tray will help prevent items from falling through and definitely help me when cutting acrylic, because sometimes what will happen is items will fall through but stick up and hit the laser head. So I'm excited to get this installed and use on this leather project for the first time. Okay, this comes with magnets to help hold down the material that you're working with onto the honeycomb tray, as well as what looks like a little cleaning brush, of course the instructions, and the tray itself. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, take it inside, and get it installed in the laser. Just need to get all of the slats removed. And then there's actually, on the riser base, which I have, a little storage compartment here on the side that I can stick those in and hide them away if I need them in the future. And now it's just a matter of installing that honeycomb base. Keep in mind that at least currently there's two versions of this honeycomb. There's an earlier version that xTool came out with first that didn't fill the whole bed space. A lot of people didn't like that, so they came out with the second version that fills the entirety of the space. Make sure if you buy it, you're getting the one that you want. The next thing I'm going to do while I'm here is get the leather put into the xTool laser. I've got a little wooden offset that I'm going to place in here that just allows me to easily shift my material up. So I'm going to put that back in, and then I'm going to go ahead and get that leather in and use those magnets to secure it. One thing to note is your leather is going to have two different sides. We've got the nice side, which is what we're going to want to be engraving on, and we've got the inner side here, which isn't quite as nice. So make sure you're doing your work on the outer nice side so that the engraving on your bookmark looks the best it can be. These magnets seem to work out a lot better than the little springy clips that came initially with the xTool P2. With that honeycomb installed and my leather secured to it, it's now time to head over to the computer and start working in the xTool software to design that bookmark. Then we'll send it over to the laser and get everything cutting and engraving. This bookmark is a pretty simple design. After firing up xTool's Creative Space and creating a new project, I dropped on a rectangle that was about 6.5 inches long and 1 3/4 inch wide and rounded over the corners. After that, I needed to place a small hole near the top of the bookmark. That's where the tassel will be attached to it. For the actual design, I found the perfect book image in the xTool image library, and then it was just a matter of deciding on what text I wanted on the bookmark, which included the name and a catchy phrase, and then I played around with fonts and sizes until I landed on something that I liked. Once the design was complete, I just needed to connect to the laser and position it on the leather. This is super easy to do with the dual cameras on the P2, and once I had it finally positioned with the close-up camera, all I needed to do was send the design to the laser and head over to the machine to push the button. Now there's actually a lot of soot on this from the laser engraving process, but it's okay to just use some water to clean this up. This is Vegetan leather, which is commonly molded using water. People will get it wet and then mold it over an object that they want it to take the shape of. So we can just use some water and get this all cleaned up. And then once it's dry, we can apply our leather dye. But besides the soot getting cleaned off, this has turned out great. The lettering looks great. The leather looks nice. And once we get some dye on that, it's going to look amazing. So I'm just going to keep wiping this with some water. My wet paper towel here, wet rag, and get that soot cleaned off so that we have a nice clean bookmark. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to leave it to dry, and then I can apply that dye. With that bookmark dry, it's now time to apply the dye. You definitely could leave it how it is, but I think you're going to find it's going to look so much better once we apply some media brown dye to it. I'm going to go ahead and put on some rubber gloves so that I don't dye my hands. I'm going to use some clean rags to apply that dye. Then I'll use another clean one to wipe off any excess, and then let it dry. Now, as my usual luck, while staining the first one, my camera battery died, so I'm staining a second one that I've created, which is almost exactly the same. But I noticed on the first one that the smaller subtext was a little bit harder to read. So I increased the font size of that. And this one has a longer name on it, so the name font size had to shrink down some. But other than that, it's exactly the same. And I'm still applying the medium brown gel dye in a circular fashion. And like I have said, I am no expert. I do not know what I am doing, and I am open to any suggestions on how I could be doing this better or differently. Getting that dye worked into the leather in a circular fashion so that I don't produce streaks, and then I'm going to come back with a clean cloth and wipe off any of the excess. And it just needs to dry. And we can add the sheen conditioner on there to help protect the leather. I went ahead and let those dry overnight, and now they're ready to apply this leather sheen to it. Like I said before, I'll have links down to all these products down in the description. There are links to Amazon, which give me a little bit of money because they're affiliate links, but they don't cost you any more extra. So if you want to help me out, a great way to do that is to use those links. We're going to apply this conditioner to it. It's going to give it a little bit of shine, a little bit of protection, and help rehydrate that leather a bit. Both of these turned out great, but I actually like the second one a little bit better because the font sizes make it easier to read that subtext. Let's go ahead and apply this leather sheen to a clean cloth and get it buffed in. I'm going to go ahead and let those dry for a little bit, then I can come back, add the tassels, and that'll be the last step on the project. I'm back after letting those dry for a bit, and now all I need to do is add the tassels. And with that, these leather bookmarks are complete. This is a great beginner project to get going with leather on your laser. Like I said before, the links to these products that I use will be down in the description if you want to try out this project for yourself. I really enjoyed this project, and it gave me a little insight into what working with leather is like. I would like to move beyond cutting it with a laser and get some basic hand tools so I can cut it by hand and make more complex projects, possibly sewing or riveting pieces together. If you'd like to follow along with my leather journey, feel free to check out this next leather video here. Otherwise, scroll down below, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Happy making!